Happy Monday. It is great to be starting off a new week with you right here on KCMO Talk Radio. A happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And I'm just here to tell you that nobody had a lower bar to clear on Mother's Day than I did. That's because I nearly got our dog Woody killed last year on Mother's Day. That was the day when he ran off the front porch on Mother's Day and nearly got himself killed by two huskies. I had to rush him to a vet last Mother's Day. Kate's driving down the street from being out for the afternoon, watches the whole thing unfold. So 1 year later, I could only improve Mother's Day. I could not do any worse, unless I suppose I got him killed. But nothing happened to the guy. He had a great day. We had a great day. And I cleared the lowest bar in the history of Mother's Days. So I did a good job. But it wasn't hard for me to do a good job yesterday. So, Mark, hopefully you did a good job for Mom yesterday on Mother's Day.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Started out with some morning basketball and progressed to letting her have a 3-hour nap in the afternoon.
Whoa, way to go. Nice job there, Mark. 3-hour nap for Mom.
That's about as good as I could do, I think, for her. And made some pancakes for dinner with the girls, and not too bad.
Nice job, man. Did you say pancakes for dinner?
Yeah, we did a little breakfast
for dinner.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Whatever Mom's into, there you go.
I did have to get a new battery in the car. Between nap time and dinner, so that was a little tough.
That stings. You'll be all right, though, man. You'll live. You'll survive. Nice job. So hopefully all the moms had a great Mother's Day yesterday. And now we're back on a Monday, and this news cycle is just on absolute fire. So the United States and China have agreed to cut tariffs 115% for 90 days as they open up this negotiating window. Now, what that means is both sides is reducing tariffs to basically 10% because we were at 125%. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, helped set up this deal, and he announced it this morning in Geneva, Switzerland, where they were negotiating. So here's what the Treasury Secretary had to say in the last couple of hours as you're just getting up and getting going on this pause and potential new, I don't want to call it an agreement. It's kind of like an agreement to stop the tariffs for the time being and try to come to a larger long-term agreement between both sides. Here was Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%. We had very robust discussions. Both sides showed great respect. It was a chance for me to meet the Chinese delegation. The vice premier I had previously had only a video call with. Ambassador Jameson was familiar with two of the other leaders on the delegation from his previous time. So there was very good personal interaction. Both countries represented their national interests very well. We concluded that we have shared interest, and we both have an interest in balanced trade. The U.S. will continue moving towards that.
So that was Scott Bessent here in the last couple of hours, the Treasury Secretary, who announced that the United States and China have agreed to a 90-day pause and will roll back their tariffs. And this is an absolutely enormous win. And even CNN this morning calls it a major trade breakthrough, John.
Yeah, I like it. The kids call it a promise ring, right?
That's a good analogy.
Kind of not engaged, but,
Yeah.
We're working our way towards that.
We're getting there, okay? And if we don't do it in 90 days, I'm taking the ring off that finger. That's the deal here. So this is a way for both sides to show some good faith. Now, does it mean that a deal is going to come to fruition? Not necessarily. But what the administration is doing wisely is they've used their leverage to their advantage. China does not want to lose us as a trade partner. They have to keep sending us as much as they possibly can for Xi to keep that economy afloat and keep that economy going. He's got no choice. Okay? If he were to lose the United States as a trade partner, there will be a revolt from his 1.5 billion citizens. And it's not going to be pretty for him. So he knows that he's got to work with Trump and he's got to work with the United States here. And Bessent having this big announcement this morning is certainly a step in the right direction. Now, the markets are going to like it big time. The Dow futures have rocketed 1,000 points to the green after the U.S.-China announcement here in the last couple of hours or so. So the Dow is up 2.5%. The S&P is up 3%. The NASDAQ is up 800 points. That's 4% in the pre-market trading. So a big, big upswing expected on Wall Street today. A great day for the markets. And before you know it, we're going to be back to where we were. We're going to be right back up to where we were on the markets here before long. I mean, that's where this thing is trending right now. I'm not saying it can't go back down and it won't go back down, but we're up year over year. If you go back to May 12th of last year, the Dow was at 39,431. We're at 41,249, and that's before the markets open up potentially another 1,000 points to the plus side. So, listen, I'm not saying that it's not going to be a roller coaster next 90 days or, 180 days. We certainly know that uncertainty is going to continue until these trade deals get figured out. But for all the hysteria, for all the, recession, depression conversations that were going on, the reality is right now as we sit here on a Monday morning, a huge announcement from the United States on a pause on the tariffs with China, and hopefully a long-term deal is set to come. I will celebrate this for what it is on the short term, but they still got to get the big thing taken care of. 913-408-7957. Let's get right to you here on a Monday. Ed in Gladstone. What's up, Ed? Go ahead, buddy.
Hey, it kind of strikes me, they're meeting in Geneva. It's not a bad place to be. I'm wondering if they might get a little more work done if they were meeting in someplace like maybe Terre Haute or Joplin. I mean, I think they're looking at it across the table and going, oh, these are going to be some prolonged negotiations with a little wink, wink, and then they break and go, out wandering around the town. I don't know if my taxpayer money is being used well. And
so,
I bet
you want them in Joplin? You want them in Joplin, Missouri instead? Is that what you said?
Or whatever, an equivalent. And you know what? My guess is they're probably not staying in a Motel 6.
That's true.
I think they might get a little more work done a little more quickly if they weren't quite so comfortable.
Ed, I never thought about that, buddy. But hey, if it works out on behalf of the United States, they can get something done here. The weather looks pretty good in Geneva. Yeah. It's rainy today, but after today, it's high 60s, low 70s for the next several days with no rain.
I'm thinking they may have to take a break in negotiations for a day or so. Doge needs to look into that.
Yeah. Well done there, Ed. Nice job out of the gates on a Monday. That's excellent work. Yeah, they might prolong that stay in Geneva. It does look beautiful over there, no doubt about it. But hey, if they win on this trade deal on behalf of the United States, if Bessent and Trump and the guys, Trump's not over there, but if they all win, Bessent will likely be hanging out for the long term. But at some point, he's going to come back, right? I mean, I don't think he's there for 90 days to hash this out in person. But either way, that's a nice job there, Ed. I appreciate that right out of the gates on a Monday. 913-408-7957 as the Dow Futures, NASDAQ, and S&P all continue to trend up. I'm watching it in real time right now after the markets continue to react to this U.S.-China trade deal and an early morning press conference today by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Now, speaking of deals, you could get some deals around Kansas City over the weekend. We'll tell you where and why, and frankly, why this is how it's supposed to go when it comes to things like this. We'll dive into the details next on 95.7 FM KCMO. Speaking of Dave Ramsey, he was in town on Friday at the Music Hall for his Money and Marriage event with John Deloney. Had a chance to visit with him briefly before the show. Posted a photo up on the Pete Mundo on KCMO Facebook page. So great guy. Had an outstanding turnout on Friday night, packed house, and a good partner here on KCMO. You hear him weeknights from 10 to midnight. So over the weekend, it was the opening of the Ivanhoe Farmers Market. Remember this? Couple of weeks, I guess it was a few weeks ago now. This was the thing that was getting shut down in Kansas City. DOJ was coming after the farmers market. And how are we possibly going to survive in Kansas City without this farmers market? How are we going to make it? That was the big question that people were asking. Tongue in cheek, of course, but this was one of the many local examples that was used by DOJ or by local media to hammer DOJ. So over the weekend, they had their opening day. And it actually went pretty well for them, which I'm happy about. I'm glad they had a great opening day. I hope they continue to have robust farmers markets, and then there'll be the kind of operation that maybe doesn't need federal grant money. There is a novel concept.
Talk about a bombshell.
Here's the reporting from Woke 41.
More than a dozen vendors were represented. Hundreds of people came out. And after experiencing federal cuts from the USDA, Ivanhoe Council Executive Director Alana Henry says the large turnout means more now than ever.
I think what's going to get us through difficult times is relationship with others and with community. And I think this opening day is a testament to that.
The USDA originally awarded the grant to the Ivanhoe Neighborhood Council last fall. As they spent money, the grant was set to reimburse the council up to $130,000 over 3 years. Now, that's a gap they're looking to fill.
That's a big gap to try to fill. So we're not close to filling that. But my heart is full. And I think if you talk to the folks here, their hearts are full as they leave this place.
Community members like Akil Hutchins hopes that by coming out and supporting the market will be one way they can help fill that gap.
We as a community need to be able to support them, even when the federal government or any government period is not supporting them. We still should be able to hold them up and push them forward.
All right. Well, yes, that's your job. If you think that this farmers market is a must-have, then the best thing that you can do as a private citizen is go shop at the farmers market, and it will survive. I know it's a novel concept for those who want to rely on the government for everything, but this is how it's supposed to work. And I'm glad that it's working out well for them. I never had a problem with them just running their farmers market. The question is, when you have a country in $36 trillion in debt, is propping up farmers markets the best play?
I'm pretty sure some of the pickup trucks I've seen pulled over at semi-rural intersections selling tomatoes and corn didn't need a grant.
Yeah.
They just pulled up with the gas tank and said, hey, I got a good deal here for you.
Yeah, that's true. But for this farmers market, they, became a big storyline around Kansas City because, well, they were getting screwed by Trump and by Elon. And the reality is, if you have a product that people want, or in this case, a farmer's market that is desirable, the public will show up and show out and support you. And that's what happened, at least for day one, in the Ivanhoe neighborhood. And I'm happy for them that they did. I hope it's sustainable. I hope it actually becomes, in a weird way, proof that, guess what? The free market is never wrong, and the free market can win out. And you can actually run a great farmer's market without the government funding it for you. So my guess, and this is just my prediction, that every Saturday or every weekend day is not going to look like it did this past weekend. This was, as you would imagine, a robust first weekend because there were a lot of people seeing the news stories and saying we got to go out and support them. I hope they get this kind of support every weekend. I do. I want every small business in Kansas City to win and win big. But if I was guessing right now, I would say that there might be a softening in the weeks ahead, but I would love to be wrong about that.
Oh, when you open on Mother's Day weekend, maybe next weekend's not quite the peak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have had a peak this past weekend.
And they only had 12 vendors, which is not a lot of vendors, to be honest.
Well, that's because there's 100 other at every other market around town.
Well, that's true.
It's nice to have one in your neighborhood, but there are several.
That's a good point, yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of those around town on the weekends this time of year. So
yeah, it's up to the vendor where you go.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, hey, if they get a lot of traction, they'll end up getting more vendors. There's another novel concept, right? That's how this works. If they become a hot spot with a lot of traction, they'll get 20 vendors, 30 vendors potentially over time, which is a win for everybody. Now, also over the weekend in Kansas City, KCPD announcing on Saturday morning that on Friday night, officers were attempting to arrest an ATV driver who was breaking the law when a suspect in a vehicle pointed a weapon at them. The suspects tried to flee but could not. Officers arrested all 4 people in the vehicle, including juveniles. They recovered 3 guns. Felony charges are pending. The officers involved were added to the city's entertainment district plan, which the department activated last week earlier than in previous years. Extra officers will continue to be present. This is from the KC Police official X account. They add here, in total, Friday night into Saturday, they arrested 6 criminals, towed 2 vehicles, seized 5 firearms, issued 9 citations, and issued 4 summons and seized drugs. That is an outstanding job. I mean, what a great win. And the mayor sharing this and saying the Kansas City Police Entertainment District Plan is bringing enforcement and consequences, including felony charges and seized vehicles, drugs, and firearms, to those causing harm in the core of our city. An earlier launch than usual, ensuring all know more arrests and seizures are coming. And the mayor added in a follow-up post on X, and yes, all in Kansas City are tired of the BS. He spelt out the word. Are tired of the BS from these offenders. Expect more enforcement and arrests. I guess he didn't actually spell out the word, but he did the full word with a little asterisk there for the I.
Little signs there. Maybe the Daily Mail and the New York Post can do a story, but Mad Max Strikes Back, right after that story they did.
After the Daily Mail headline from last week that went worldwide. That's a good idea. Residents in Mad Max Hellhole City are on the rebound. They're happy to go out after 8 p.m. now after arrests made over the weekend. This is great. This is the kind of stuff that we need to see more of and want to see more of. Go KCPD. I'm glad the mayor is on board. Boy, we have done an about face from where this town was 5 years ago, but it's going to take more time to dig out of it. Now, speaking of law enforcement, we've got private cops coming down to the plaza. What are business owners and people saying? We'll share next. It was at the end of the show on Friday that we found out that armed security was heading down to the plaza after an announcement from the new ownership group Highland Park Village. They, of course, bought the plaza. That became finalized last fall. This is their last summer. And sad to say, but this needs to happen. Now, it's completely unfair that all these business owners are paying taxes to the city of Kansas City, Missouri, and now ownership will have to go out of its way to hire additional armed security guards because they can't trust their taxes to do things like pay for police to properly patrol their business district. But that's the problem the city is facing right now, and it will not be fixed overnight when you're down 200, 300, 400 cops, which Kansas City, Missouri is. So for now, they got to hire armed security. And overall, you know, you had some of the TV stations go down there over the weekend. Jonathan Ketz did a great job, Fox 4 here in Kansas City, talking to some of the patrons and some of the business owners. And here's what they said.
I think it's smart. You want to protect the businesses, protect the people.
The majority of the people we spoke with think having armed guards in this area is a good thing. Jenny Lang says she doesn't understand why people think that guards would be bad.
Are they worried it's going to make it look like it's unsafe? Because there's reality of life we live in today. You want reality or you want to pretend like you feel safe?
I was at work one day and I came back out to my car and my window was broken and they basically just took everything out of my car.
Hunter Wilson likes the idea of having armed guards in this area based off of what happened to him. The owner of a furniture store, on the other hand, doesn't know whether they're actually necessary.
We never felt that we were in any kind of situation or danger or whatever you would want to call it.
Well, I saw the inside of that furniture store, and even the criminals are like, yeah, I'll skip that place. There's nothing in here that I want. I mean, geez. It's just, I saw it on Fox 4. I wouldn't want the crap in that furniture store. My gosh, it was stuck out of the 70s. Couldn't have been more ugly if it tried. So even the criminals are like, yeah, we're not stealing your stuff, lady. That's why she's like, I never felt unsafe in my store. Well, listen, you poll most people on the plaza, and they're going to say, thank you. Please send more armed security. May I have another? But that was the one person who Fox 4 talked to who was like, no, I'm good. I don't feel the need for armed security. We're fine. Well, also, this individual was not on, like, right on the main drag there on 47th Street. And that's where you're going to get a lot of the ATVs, a lot of the, packs and groups of people. And also, let's be honest, the furniture store is not going to be the draw for young people to hang out and potentially cause problems. It's not going to happen there. It'll happen at and around restaurants. It might happen at some of the main stores on 47th Street. But it's not going to be at the old lady furniture store on the corner of Nichols Road in Pennsylvania. That's not where it's going to be. All right? So, of course, you had to find one. But either way, this was welcomed. Now, I was thinking about it yesterday because we went out to brunch for Mother's Day yesterday, and we were not on the plaza. We were not in Kansas City, Missouri. But we were at, I would say, Kate's favorite restaurant in town. And we're there, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this is a top 10 weather day in Kansas City. The plaza is probably beautiful right now. And I would feel okay, brunch time, bringing 3 kids down there and going out to eat and whatnot. But there are just way too many options that, frankly, are closer to where we live. And I don't have to have that thought in the back of my mind. Not that it would be at the front of my mind. It wouldn't. But in the back of my mind, I would be like, I wonder how this is going to go. And if you're set to, spend some money on brunch or going out to eat or whatever, and you got your kids with you, the last thing that you want to have in the back of your mind is, Jesus, my car window going to be broken when I get back to it? Is there going to be something that I'm going to have to think about or look over my shoulder with when it comes to having my kids down here? Once again, it's not something that would be top of mind. I'm not going to be like walking in fear. But even having it in the back of your mind when there's a bunch of great places you can go out to eat where you don't have to do that is going to make people think twice.
Yeah, when your thought process engages a filter in your mind, it gives you, reason to pause for a moment.
Exactly.
Good or bad.
Exactly. And, it's not 30 years ago when it's like, if I want to get a top-notch meal or go out to brunch, that's the place to do it. It's like I've got places 10 minutes away. And, yes, the plaza setting is outstanding. And, you can walk around, great place, beautiful weather. You get all that you may not get in your suburban shopping center when you go from the parking lot to, the restaurant. But is it worth it? What's the trade-off? And there's a lot of people who are going to say, you know what? I'm just going to pass right now.
Well, strike one is this city's the size of New York City.
Yeah.
You're going to drive when you're going somewhere. So anyway, the closer the better.
320 square miles, almost exactly the same size geographically as New York City. You're right about that. So a lot of people are going to skip out on it. But I do hope that this brings back great business to the plaza. I mean, especially as we get set for the best weather months, or at least the warmer weather months in this town. This is when some of these businesses should be popping. And frankly, as that first lady said in the Fox 4 piece, you can either live in the real world or you can bury your head in the sand and be like, well, if we have armed security, people are going to be scared. Are you scared when you walk into Arrowhead Stadium? Are you scared when you go to the airport? I feel as safe as I do anywhere else. That's arguably the safest I feel. And that's with a bunch of drunks around you as well, right? But you're going through metal detectors. You got cops all over the place. You feel pretty damn safe. At no point when you're sitting in that stadium with 80,000 of your closest friends are you thinking about something dangerous happening. If you didn't have that, you'd feel a lot less safe. Let's be honest, a lot less safe. If you went to the airport and there was no TSA, I'm not saying these TSA folks are Mensa members, but you know what? They got a little process there that makes you feel safe. If you didn't have that, you'd be wondering, what am I getting onto with this airplane? So now if the plaza is going to have more of the armed security around, I think most people are going to be okay with that. And those who aren't going to be okay with that are the virtue signalers anyway. Let's be honest. It's going to be the virtue signalers who don't want to admit reality, who probably aren't the ones who are spending the bulk of the time down there to begin with.
Well, it's MAPA, Make the Plaza Great Again. I worked back down there in the 80s, and we had the Plaza Patrol, and they used to torment people with parking tickets, but they were packing. You know?
Yeah.
I got in trouble one time with the Plaza Patrol on a celebration of the World Series, so I went to Plaza Prison. I knew where it was. So they had this before, and people survived and went there.
What did they feed at Plaza Prison?
I got turned out immediately. My infraction was very slight and overzealous. Guard decided I needed to go in and talk to the judge. The judge is like, get him out of here.
Get that John Anthony out of here, would you please?
Oh, I didn't have to do that. My credentials were unnecessary at that
point. Oh, that's outstanding. We got to get back to that. John in Plaza Prison. Is that the only time you ever spent any time in the can?
Yeah, that such as it was. That's right. It was at the bottom of a parking garage there on Broadway.
Oh, geez.
Under the parking lot.
Well, you know what? If they're doing more of that, I think that the plaza is going to be much better off. I'll tell you that right now. Much better off.
Keep people like me in line.
Yeah, exactly. If you are just getting going this morning, you are waking up to some fantastic news at 7:05 on a Monday. The markets are loving what the Trump administration announced. They announced it yesterday, but then we got some more details in a press conference that took place from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And that is that there will be a 90-day truce in the trade war between the United States and China. Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P all up 2.5% to 4% this morning. So a lot of excitement out there as we get the Monday morning started after Mother's Day. Woo! And so glad you're starting it with us on KCMO. So let's play and hear from, and this guy is kind of the secret weapon in the whole deal, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. He joined Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and he talked in this press conference this morning about how this deal is not just about trade, but also about fentanyl.
And so today, with this agreement, we come to agreement that our reciprocal tariff rate will go down to 10% on the United States side, so it goes down 115%. We enter into a 90-day pause period for negotiations, which both the Chinese and the United States are very committed to. And the Chinese on their side also go down 115% to 10%, and they remove the countermeasures that they have in place. To be very clear, other measures that the United States has put in place in the past, whether it's tariff measures from 2018 or since, tariffs under other statutory authorities, tariff related to fentanyl, those remain unchanged for now to the side. I'll just make one point, is that both the Chinese and the United States agreed to work constructively together on fentanyl, and there's a positive path forward there as well.
Now, I will I will trust the administration. I will not trust the Chinese on this, because they have been allowing fentanyl to pour over our border for several years. And it has resulted in record levels of drug overdose deaths in this country. We hit 100,000 ODs in America during the Biden administration, and a lot of that was not your traditional overdose. A lot of that was just what you're talking about with fentanyl poisonings, right? It's people taking something that they have no idea is laced with fentanyl, and then the worst comes to fruition. And you've had it happen, and it knows no bounds when it comes to socioeconomic levels. It's happening in poor areas, urban areas, rural areas, and it's even a big deal in suburban areas. We're about a month out from the Cooper Davis Memorial 5K Run Walk, the Keeping Clean for Coop 5K Run Walk that we are partners on, taking place up at Mill Valley High School on Saturday, June the 14th. So I'm going to be running in that, and we're happy to be partnered with them. That's after Cooper Davis, 4 years ago now, died from a fentanyl poisoning as a high schooler. And he had no idea what he was taking was laced with fentanyl. And, if you want to be a part of that 5K run walk, we'd love to see you out there. Just go to CooperDavisMemorialFoundation.org, and you can sign up. They are, last year they had 700-800 runners out of that thing. So it's a great event, and we're looking forward to being partnered with them again on this. But I'm glad that the U.S. is talking about, hey, we know that the fentanyl comes from China, gets into Mexico, and then under Joe Biden was crossing the border very easily and was being laced in drugs that were being distributed all over the country. So that's got to come to an end. And the fact that Scott Bessent and Ambassador Greer are talking about that is a very critical and important part of making sure that we get the kind of deal that we want, because these guys are bad actors. Okay, it's not like whether it's COVID, whether it's fentanyl, I believe they declared war on the United States. It's not like it was 100 years ago, like, I'm declaring war, now I'm sending a bunch of military personnel into your country or whatever it might be. Wars are fought in very different ways, and China is fighting an economic war against us. They're now the largest trading partner for many countries around the world, and they're also fighting us in a war when it comes to things like COVID and when it comes to, frankly, fentanyl. And even, I would argue, TikTok. I mean, I still think, and we haven't talked a lot about it, but Trump has dragged his feet on this TikTok deal. And I get it. He doesn't want to lose the young vote that's moving to the right. But, man, I mean, they have totally acquiesced on this TikTok thing. They could shut that down today. But once again, they're trying to find an American buyer. And I'm not convinced that the Chinese want an American buyer for TikTok here in the U.S. because they can push all their propaganda. Meantime, in China, when you use TikTok in China, you know what you get? You learn how to do advanced math. You know what you get on our TikTok videos? Trannies. That's what you get in our TikTok videos. Now, let's see how many Americans we can make trans in the U.S. model of TikTok. In China, they're teaching their kids how to do algebra when they're 3 years old. You tell me what's different here about this. Same thing. They are using it to their advantage. That's what's happening. And I would love to see a reset on that conversation happening sooner rather than later. But I think for now, the administration's kind of taken this approach of being like, you know what? Let's do one thing at a time. Let's get the trade deal done. Let's not piss them off with the TikTok stuff and set ourselves back and try to move the ball forward as best as we can. But this is very much welcome news. The markets are going to open sky high this morning, and that is definitely going to be a big win, at least to start the week. Who knows where the roller coaster goes from here? But at least to start the week, we've got a 90-day truce for the U.S.-China trade war and also a rolling back of the tariffs from 145% to 30%. And China's tariff on us will also get rolled back 115% to 10%. So that's all welcome news. Now, back here in Kansas City, did you see the musty moo-moo man himself had a big rally that ended up being a big old bust?
You muster moo-moo-moo.
More people at the Ivanhoe Market?
Oh, yeah. Way more people at the Ivanhoe Market on Saturday than were at Emmanuel Cleaver's big rally at World War I. If you didn't see, I just happened to stumble on the news story. I don't know what I was watching. Oh, we had Chloe's 4th birthday on Saturday. I flipped on the NBA playoffs, which they had been pretty good. I'm not a big NBA guy, but with all these Villanova guys on the Knicks, and the playoffs have actually been pretty entertaining. Mark, you've been gambling like a degenerate on the NBA games, or you taking it easy?
Not like a degenerate, but an occasional one.
Okay.
It hasn't been great for me. I've won a few, lost a few.
What's your definition of a degenerate, I guess? That's what you're going to say to me.
I don't throw more than $5 on
All right. That's good. Good. I like to hear that, Mark. So after the NBA playoff game, Channel 9 had on the local news, and they lead off with Emmanuel Cleaver's anti-Doge rally that happened at World War I. And here you are with a top 10 day in Kansas City. I mean, that was maybe the best day we've had all year on Saturday, right? And Cleaver's there at the podium, and there's a smattering of people. The news report said 200. That is a generous 200. Maybe if you add another 0, you get to 200. I mean, it looked like it was 75, 80 people. And because they're all spread out in the lawn, it looked awful. The optics were terrible. And Cleaver's up there, and I couldn't find, Channel 9 didn't even put it on its website. I was looking all over for it yesterday and today. They had it on their broadcast on Saturday, but I couldn't find the story. And Cleaver's up there banging the podium, doing the whole thing. And it's like, dude, there's like 70 people out here. They're holding some signs. There's a couple of union folks, but no one's jazzed about this. I mean, listen, the point of rallies is to make it look like the people are on your side. It doesn't actually change policy, right? It's all about creating a perception that people are fed up with or supporting you on whatever you're there to rally against or rally for. And this did anything but that. Now, I didn't see you down there, John. Could you find nothing to wear once again for this rally?
Yeah, I haven't switched out my wardrobe. I've got long sleeves in the one closet. I've got to go over and get my polos out and golf shirts, so I haven't rotated my closet stock yet.
Well, Cleaver didn't give you much lead time on this one, so for the next one, I'll make sure that you get out there in time.
I'll be prepared.
Yeah, I know. So you just had like a dozen people sitting on the steps, and then you had maybe 50, 60, 70 people out in the field. It looked awful. If nothing else, what they should have done is set this thing up on top of the World War I Museum, where Joe Biden did his rally back in 2019, I guess it was, when he was here, where you can fit a lot of people onto that top tier area, and you pack it in and you make it look like it's a lot more people than it really is. But when you're spreading out 75 people on the lawn at World War I, it looks terrible. Terrible. I mean, Emmanuel Cleaver should be embarrassed by this turnout. If your goal was to make it look like Kansas City is fed up with Trump and Doge, this did not even come close to meeting that moment. And instead, I'm just doubling down, man.
The issue is they're not whacking enough.
That's where my mindset's at right now. They're not whacking enough.
Apparently, everybody else, too.
Exactly. Apparently, people are on our side here, not Cleaver's side, based on his turnout. My goodness. I mean, I think that we could announce we're doing a Doge rally, a pro-Doge rally, and we'd at least double that number with 24 hours lead time. It was embarrassing. Coming up on KCMO, people are mad. They're mad at the Pope's brother. Why? Oh, man. You can't make this stuff up. We'll tell you next on 95.7 FM KCMO. Pope Leo getting himself in some hot water courtesy of his brother out of the gates. I mean, I'm kidding. No one cares, and no one should care about what the brother of the new pope thinks. But, you know, this is the world we now live in, right? Where everyone has a social media footprint, and if people want to dig deep enough, they can find whatever they want on you. So we have the first ever American pope, and yes, he also happens to be a fellow Villanovan, so I'm glad I went when I did, because something tells me that it's going to be much more difficult to get into after this news broke last week. But the Pope's older brother, Lou, lives in Port Charlotte, Florida. Lou in Florida. Man, there's got to be like 2 million Lou's in Florida, don't you think? Retirees named Lou in Southwest Florida. So Lou happens to be a big Trump guy. And, of course, this is not sitting well with some of our TDS media. The Daily Beast is the first one who went after this. They are a far-left online publication. And they don't like the fact that the new Pope's brother, has said some not-so-nice things about Nancy Pelosi. So he called Nancy Pelosi and shared a video calling Nancy Pelosi a drunk. And he has also scolded crying libs suffering from Trump derangement syndrome on his Facebook page. Sounds like a good time to me, this guy. I wonder if he's a fellow Villanovan as well. He'd boost our enrollment numbers, too. This guy sounds like he's just looking to have a good time and shooting straight facts as far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know, just looking at the tea leaves from afar here. So he's got all these old videos up on his Facebook page. Talks about crying libs, TDS, and the whole thing. He also shared his opinions on Elon Musk's Doge, gender issues, and also Fox News. And it's like, man, obviously this should have zero impact on the Pope himself. I don't think the Pope's a big MAGA guy based on some of the things he's posted up on social media. So you mean to tell me that we actually have family members who disagree on politics in 2025? No!
Talk about a bombshell.
No, oh, there is no way that there are siblings who may have different opinions on politics in this current political climate. That is impossible. No, it's not. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. Yeah, you had MAGA people taking victory laps as if somehow the Pope's brother being a MAGA guy means anything for the future of the Catholic Church. It really doesn't. And then on the flip side, you have people melting down because the Pope's brother is a big MAGA guy, as if that has any impact on the future of the Catholic Church. The reality is absolutely none of this matters at all for the future of the Catholic Church. But when you're looking to find digital footprints and you're looking for people to either blame or support in a hyper-partisan, hyper-political environment, this is the kind of nonsense that you get. Let's do a deep dive into the Pope's brother's Facebook and see what we can find. Oh, my goodness. Welcome to America and the media in 2025 as well.
Yeah, it's like at Jimmy Carter's brother and Bill Clinton's brother. They were big on that, too.
Yeah, it just never ends. Or Trump's second cousin who's written a book about him. What's that? Mary Trump, I think is her name. And she hates Trump, so the media loves her. And it's like, who cares about any of who cares about these people? It's irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. But our media loves digging this stuff up as if somehow it's going to make a difference. And it's not going to make a difference. You know, when the Dow Jones opens up today, up 1,000 points, it's going to be exactly where it was back on January 9th. At about 42,400. January 12th, it was at 42,297. Today, it's going to open up at 42,368. It's going to be exactly where it was on January 12th of this year, 4 months ago. For all the hysteria, and I'm not saying there's not more of a roller coaster to come, but after the administration announced a pause in the tariffs for 90 days with U.S. and between the U.S. and China, the fearmongers of there goes my 401k. I don't know how I'm going to retire anymore. You're going to have retirees coming out of retirement. They're going to have to go back and, be greeters at Walmart. They're just not going to make it. What happened to them? Where are they? I can't seem to find them.
You mustard.
Maybe it's just me. NASDAQ's up 800 points with the market set to open up in 23 minutes. Glad you're here with us on KCMO Talk Radio. Happy Monday morning. So this is a great example of how local and national media can manipulate a story that really has no basis to it. I saw this over the weekend in one of our local TV stations' websites. And it wasn't from them. It was one of these nationally syndicated stories like the Associated Press does that just gets blasted out all over the internet. And it's aggregated by news operations around the country. And it's just copy and pasted and assumed as fact. But then you realize there's really nothing there. And this is a prime example of that. So the headline read, proposed SNAP changes could impact 11 million Americans, report finds. Now, SNAP is food stamps, which, does need a massive overhaul. And able-bodied people should have much stricter limits on food stamps than they currently have. We also have to have more limits on what you can buy with food stamps. Soda should be off the table. No soda with food stamps. But anyway, the article goes on to note that a new report from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities indicates that a proposed change to SNAP food stamps would risk the benefits of 11 million Americans receiving assistance. The report examined a recent bill proposed by Republican Representatives Dusty Johnson, Randy Feenstra, and Warren Davidson. Now, I have no idea who those guys are. I had to look them up. They're from, I think, South Dakota, and I don't know the other states. It doesn't matter. There are three Republicans. They're not like the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. They're not anybody in leadership. They're just Republicans who introduced a bill. 98% of the bills, maybe it's 99, but you get the point. The vast majority of bills that get introduced or proposed don't go anywhere. Nothing happens with them, right? I mean, we all know that. If we sat here, that's why when I have people in Jeff City or Topeka reach out, hey, I proposed a bill that does X. Can I talk about it? No, you can't. No, because I'm not going to waste the listener's time talking about something that's proposed when there's like a million hurdles to jump over to come close to making this thing a law. Nobody wants to hear about things that are proposed. Unless it's like the governor, but like it's not meant to be an insult. It's just everybody who's in politics proposes stuff, and 99% of it goes nowhere. So this big piece gets blasted. Local media had it, national media had it, and they go on to say, wow, look at these Republican lawmakers who want to cut SNAP benefits for 11 million Americans. But when you realize it's a proposal, I mean, we can't even get this big, beautiful bill done, right? That's just supposed to be an extension of Trump's tax cuts from 2017. You think there's going to be all these new proposals? Congress doesn't, listen, I know the people in Congress will tell you otherwise, but they're not doing a lot. They're not. They're publicly subsidized TV commentators at this point is what they largely are. I mean, look at whether it's Trump or Biden or Obama or Bush, Clinton. We're getting to a point where basically we have a president who runs on executive orders and operates on executive orders, and then the courts get involved, and around and around and around we go. And Congress does the absolute bare minimum. But that didn't stop this proposal by these random Republicans to become local news and national news. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, this proposal would eliminate benefits for 1.4 million American adults. Another 300,000 people living in households with adults age 55 to 64 would be at risk of losing benefits. And you got to keep reading this story until you come to the obvious conclusion of it's just an idea. It's a proposal. And a similar proposal was put forth in 2023. And guess what? It did absolutely nothing and went absolutely nowhere. So why are we writing stories like this that then they get syndicated in Kansas City and around the country? Well, for political purposes, to fearmonger, to say, look at these big bad people cutting food stamps, when there's nothing to suggest anywhere in the article that this proposal has any legs to it. I wish it actually did have some legs to it, but it doesn't. Now, what's actually happening in this news cycle that does have legs to it, that is a real story. And it's this U.S.-China deal on a tariff pause that was announced late yesterday. And Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, did a press conference early this morning from Switzerland, making this announcement, talking about what it means for the United States. And what this basically is going to do is reduce the tariffs that the U.S. slapped on China from 145% down to 30%. So that's a 115% reduction. The other way around, China is reducing it to 10% from 125%. So both sides knock the tariffs down 115% as they enter a 90-day negotiating period. That's what's got the markets up big time this morning. But there is, in Scott Bessent, who did a press conference this morning, he did make it clear that we're actually not going to be totally reneging from trade with China. So that is a different approach from this administration than what we've heard over the last couple of months. And it's an important part of what Scott Bessent said this morning when he said this.
But the consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling. And what had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Greer said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that. We do want trade. We want more balanced trade, and I think that both sides are committed to achieving that. We would like to see China open to more U.S. goods. We expect that as the negotiations proceed, that there will also be a possibility of purchase agreements to pull what is our largest bilateral trade deficit into balance.
So Scott Bessent saying neither side wants a decoupling. We want trade. We just want more balance on trade. That's going to be really hard to do Now, we have the leverage here, and that's something that Trump and Bessent and this administration realized, because we obviously consume far more goods from China than they consume from us. And you do want more balance. The best way to get that balance, as far as I can tell, is to basically do the other thing Scott Bessent mentioned and get rid of anything that's medically related, medically involved, semiconductors, anything that you would consider a national security issue or item, get it out of China. We learned that the hard way during COVID. But it doesn't signal to me that we're at a place where suddenly when 4 to 5 kids' toys are made in China, that's going to reverse to 1 out of 5. It seems like that's the low level of things they care about right now. They want to make sure that the big things are moved out of China and then try to even out the trade deficit between both sides, which is an admirable goal. I mean, there's no doubt. The Chinese, they steal intellectual property from this country. They fleece the rest of the world as well. And then, of course, they just ship a bunch of cheap crap to us. And then we're guilty as well of consuming it. So we do bear some of the responsibility here. There's no doubt about it. But this is a little bit of a sign from the administration that when it comes to the way they were talking about this 2 months ago, like we've got to be done with China, that's not what they're saying now. They're basically saying we have to lessen our reliance on them in some key categories, but keep that relationship in a place where it's suitable and acceptable and beneficial for both sides. And I'm okay with that. I think most people should be okay with that. But also encouraging businesses to stop their manufacturing as much as possible in China and move it to India or wherever else you can get it to is also something that American businesses should be challenged with by this administration.